All right, I'm ready. Said I'm sweaty, I'm smelly, I love peanut butter and jelly. What up, y'all? It's me. It's your boy, Adam Pecora here, and welcome to another episode of Confusing Movie Tuesdays. This is Requiem for a Tuesday. We got some stuff to get into, you know? Tenet finally dropped on HBO Max, which means I have finally seen it. Maybe we'll do a little Nolan retrospective as well. Hard to say. But I think it might have to happen. Because, boy, was that movie surprising. In many ways. What else do we got? Oh, I watched Vanilla Sky. I'm going to talk about that as well. What a fucking nightmare. But first things first, RFAT.bigcartel.com. Cop some merch, rate, review, subscribe to this podcast, any and all platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, do all the stuff. Episode 55 was a video special. Go check that out on the YouTube channel. And should have some music news coming soon. Hopefully got a drop this summer. We'll be plugging that as that comes. I think that's it for now. Right? Yes. Okay. Sipping a little coffee here. A little coffee. A little cold brew really gets you. Cold brew gets you a lot more. And here's the thing. It's like I don't need more. I don't understand those people that have like addictive personalities, because I don't. You know what I mean? But in single form, like one dose form, I really do want to take things to the max. So whatever that is. Like I'm not an alcoholic, I'm a binge alcoholic. So whatever that is, coffee, Adderall, cocaine, you name it. It's like I don't want to buzz. Like if I'm doing this, I'm doing it. Whole ass one thing, as Ron Swanson famously said. I stand by that firmly. What am I talking? How did I get here? Coffee. That's right. Both in conversation and chemically. That's how I got here. Now, if you're listening to this in the present time, I'm experimenting with release times just to see if that does anything. Just cause it's probably stupid, but so that's why this isn't out at the time you thought it might be. Present people, future people, you don't care. Oddly enough, that ties in greatly with the Tenet topic, but I'm gonna keep y'all on a string. Is that the term? I don't think so. Dangling? Yeah, I think so. And it's just been a crazy week, so we're gonna pivot, as Ross would say. I didn't want to do it, Yeah, I don't want to do the Friends references too much, because then it's like, oh, this guy, like I'm listening to a guy fucking quote Friends. It doesn't seem, because Friends is at a pretty low point, I would say, in its belovedness, and rightfully so. I mean, we just realized, shows could be better. It took a while, but I mean, I loved Friends as a kid, don't get me wrong. But the last, really, 3 seasons are horrific almost, most of the time. Anyway, we don't need to do that. See? I don't know. Because I'm also doing this AM recording style. So, fresh brain, quote unquote, arguably, plus I don't know, could be too much energy, could be an overload, this might be a bust. This is what I got to deal with, too. It's like I should take a Xanax before I do one of these. It's like, am I bombing? Do you like me? Do you like me? Tell me if you like me. Why haven't you called? So I was dog sitting over the weekend. And, went off without a hitch, needless to say. Love me a good pupper. But okay, so we were doing a little morning walk. Now, naturally, I woke and boke. I boked. And, so I'm chilling. It's a nice little stroll with a little doggo, sunny morning, feeling good, feeling fresh, much like right now, minus the caffeine. Anyway, so, at some point, we're just walking along the sidewalk, minding our own business, like we'd be doing. And this fucking guy who looks like Dave Portnoy's dad, literally, rolls up on I just see, how you just see out of one side of your face? So, out of the right side of my eye, out of the right side of my face, because it wouldn't be the right side of my eye. It's still my eye. It's just my right eye. Come on, Adam. I got to keep myself in check. Anyway, just a shadowy figure emerges. And it's like, oh, fuck. What's going on here? And really what I realized, too, is the dog slams into my leg. Usually, she keeps her distance. She's busy sniffing, as they'd be doing. And this guy, he has, I don't know how to explain it other than walking sticks. It's as if he's skiing, right? But they're just walking sticks, and they're maybe 7 feet tall each. He has one in each hand. And mind you, it's the middle of Chicago on a sidewalk. I am by no means, I'm on a major street also. There's a bus route. We are not by any means in any type of secluded, hikey territory. Now, there's an elevated park nearby. Sure, that may have been where he was heading. Regardless, what the fuck are you doing? You're instantly already the crazy guy. So it doesn't start off well. So I looked to anyway, so this guy's just running into us, is what I'm saying. He basically walks directly into the dog. And so I stop upon impact. I just mean mug the guy. It's yo, what the fuck are you doing? You don't just walk directly into people. Anyway, he stops. And he goes, you should go ahead. You seem irritated. And it's yeah, man. You're an idiot. What are you talking about? He was trying to get me with the clever, sarcastic thing to say. But it's both of the things you said are true. I should go first because I already was. And I am irritated because of you doing that. Had you not done any of this, nothing would have happened at all. So it's just what? And then, funny enough, I naturally start walking slow as soon as he does that. And then I see him power walking with his sticks through an intersection while the light is red. So felt good about that as he almost got hit by a car. What are you doing? Then I saw him the next morning on the next block over, the residential side. So I think maybe Papa learned his lesson. Regardless, it's just what an insane proposition. Imagine you stab someone in the stomach and you're you should call an ambulance. You seem hurt. It's yeah. I wasn't. None of this is all your fault. You know what I mean? It is what a crazy thing to say. I don't know. It was I almost responded, and it's just wow, what you just said was so stupid that I'm not even going to engage with this, because this is going to result in somebody somewhere whipping out a phone. Next thing you know, I'm getting my ass kicked by the old man with the walking sticks. Not a risk I'm willing to take. I can't. I have to keep my dignity. I'm lucky. Well, I'm not lucky. I'm a little lucky because that British man in New York City, I don't know if we ever talked about this, the Back to the Future man who I want to murder, he's lucky I didn't see him. Just on thought of old men being wild, that's top tier. Now this guy, he's just an idiot. Why are you walking? You know what I mean? Imagine that guy's your dad. He's hiking around the neighborhood with these walking sticks. His existence is embarrassing enough. So it's I didn't really need to do too much. I was a little mad. It's why are you stepping on this dog and walking into me? It's just he didn't step on her, but he almost did, If the dog wasn't paying attention, which is like the craziest sentence you could ever utter. Like, you know what I mean? They just survived the car accident. Had the dog not been watching? It's just like, that's never a thing. It's not on them. You know? They can't. They're like every child across America. You know? Maybe we should give all the dogs Adderall, too. We'll be able to focus more. Anyway. Don't get walking sticks and don't step on dogs. That's the lesson I learned. Or, that's the lesson to be had. I already knew that information. As you know, I know all. Whew, I tell you, I've only had like 4 sips of this thing. Coffee in the morning is like insane. I don't know. I think everybody knows that, or maybe they don't. But we don't need it. I don't know. I've been off the caffeine addiction for a while, but that was yerba mate based anyway. It's like I don't want my heart to I don't want to feel it. I don't want to know my heart is there. You know what I mean? I don't want to think about my organs. Makes me uncomfortable. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. It's just like I'm a guy who doesn't need any stimulants anyway. You know, I just need sedatives. Just constant mild sedatives. It's a miracle that the man hasn't tranked me down yet. It's dangerous having this kind of energy. What else happened? Israel? Just kidding. Like I'm going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. Just like you. Don't pretend like you think you know anything. You don't. You're not there. It's a million miles away. Why do you care? Mind your own business. You know what I mean? Motherfuckers got child support to pay talking about Israel. Like, what are you guys doing? Crazy. Go get vaccinated. I got my second dose. And I'm going to be that guy. Because that's it. That's the new small talk. That's the new how's school going? You know? Did you get it? Which one? Blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares which one? We don't know what the difference... Like, you don't know the difference. I don't know the difference. You can pretend like you do. You can pretend like you read it. Either way, who fucking cares? Shoot me up, baby. No, but my shoulder hurts. Again. Which is fine, as expected. Weirdly, though, I'm getting the night sweats. It's terrible. I'm waking up in the middle of the night just freezing cold, soaking wet, and no other symptoms. So that's a weird combination as well. Would like something. Like if I felt sick, it would justify that happening, but it's like, oh, I'm just sweating in my sleep. It's like if that's just a new thing, that would be upsetting. I'm gonna have to sleep in like with like saran wrap over the mattress, like an Italian woman's couch. Shout out Grandma Pecora, obviously, not the German side. But yeah, my grandmother, she had plastic over all of her furniture. I kind of liked it, to be honest. It wasn't aesthetically unpleasing, I would say, surprisingly, and it wasn't that uncomfortable either. I think we threw out the couch. Rest in peace. Oh, God. But I'm just saying, it's just like, what were you protecting? Nobody kept it. It's almost a little sad. Could have enjoyed those cushions. I wonder what happened to them. I was too young. I was too young. Maybe I wanted that couch. Could still have it. Oh, boy. Her apartment was interestingly smelly. Ooh, a little phlegm came out there, which is good, right? COVID people. Anyway, let's get on to it. Confusing Movie Tuesday. Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Now, spoilers, I guess. I don't guess. There's gonna be. But I say I guess because even if you haven't seen it and plan to see it, what I tell you, I don't really think will be that big of a deal. I mean, I guess key plot points would be nice to not know certain things of them, but I wish that I had a little bit of a guide to this movie before going in. So, backstory, if you've listened to this show, especially in recent weeks, it's come up. Maybe just because, I can really only talk to George about comic book stuff. Sorry, George, but it's true. He's not here, by the way, if you haven't noticed. So, Dark Knight comes up in comparisons and stuff. Basically, I don't know. Christopher Nolan, I think, is a hack at writing. I think he's a great director. His problem is that, like, his movies are always so self-important and indulgent, and I don't know. I feel like he thinks of himself, or he presents his movies in a way that he thinks of himself as like this great dramatic writer, and his drama is terrible. His dialogue is horrific. I don't have dialogue specific examples because it's bad, but it's mostly forgettable. I mean, there's the Bane opening scene in Dark Knight Rises where it's just like completely incoherent. Like the guys are having two conversations. That's the most popular example. But I mean, they really all have it. Like I said with Inception previously, it's just like helpless women crying, and all they just need the guy to help them, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit like that. Not a fan of it. And it's that it takes it so seriously. Like the stakes. It's like, this is Titanic. I love Titanic. So, don't shit on Titanic. Not that is like, the premier drama of all time or anything. But like it's not even at that level. It doesn't reach those heights. You can get Leo in the movie and it doesn't matter. Shutter Island was better. I'll stand by it. So going into Tenet, that was why I wasn't gonna pay the like $40 or whatever crazy amount it was to watch it at home. They dropped it, I guess, at a COVID safe time in retrospect, right? But like, for some reason, November seemed so far away, or whenever it might have came out even earlier than that, but there was no chance I was going to go to the movies to go see it. I almost did like one afternoon because I happened to walk past the theater like right before it was about to start. And I was just like, no, fuck it. I can't. Anyway, I just didn't want to do it because I just didn't want to be disappointed. I didn't want to, you know what I mean? It's just like he doesn't like to make movies. He likes to make theater events. So that would have been the upside, obviously. It's like this is the setting and environment that this movie's meant to be seen, and that would be dope. Like that was my problem with Dunkirk. I turned it off, frankly. I mentioned that in a previous episode as well. It's made for the theater so much that like watching it at home, it's like bad. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong place, wrong time, wrong state of mind, whatever. But like the acclaimed movie I read about was not what I saw at all. But I could see how it would have translated well. Interstellar didn't even bother to see. McConaughey, come on. Astronaut. Like I'll give him, he's a good actor at this point in time. It's pretty undeniable, I would say. He ain't no astronaut. And also it's just like all the talk about how accurate the science is and all this shit, which all of that tells me that this movie is going to be more self-important. Like, look at all this research I did. Here's all this jargon that you won't understand and you'll never bother to understand because it's like nobody fucking cares about this, like in this much depth. And no one's going to fucking notice anyway. And it's like, honestly, like if you scaled it back, it would be more enjoyable. So it's like, who are you doing this for? Not a fan. So Tenet, I'm trying to get there. I swear. Going in, I'm like, okay, John David Washington, he's the fucking man. Robert Pattinson, he's the fucking man. Like, this is going to be sick. But I just don't want it to be the same thing again and again. And it starts off and it looks just like it. It's like, this is where we're heading. And I went into it with this negative mentality that, like, this movie, it's going to try to, because it had no plot. The trailer doesn't reveal anything. And all that any reviewer gave was like, oh, this is incoherent, and it's about being incoherent, and it doesn't really have anything. And I'm like, oh, great. So I know exactly what this is. It's just going to be nonsense over and over and over again, and then like some crazy twist that you're like, is that even legitimate? You know, I'm basically looking for Inception 2. Which I've grown, like I said, it just ages poorly. His movies age poorly. Everything that I've seen of his, I like less than I did. Except The Prestige. I refuse to rewatch that because I don't want to like that less. I remember that being very good. So the movie starts off with this massive set piece in this Ukrainian, Russian, doesn't matter, opera house thing, and you don't really know what's going on. There's like clearly criminals, clearly agents, but then there's agents who put on fake things, so it's like, are they an agent? What's really going on? And then like the crowd just like falls asleep. And so you're like, oh, is this real? Is this fake? Are they in a dream? Like, is this Inception? Like, what's going on? And yeah, I don't know. It just looks like the intro to The Dark Knight. The intro to The Dark Knight Rises. Like, oh, here's a big opening thing, right? But in Batman movies, there's context. You're watching a Batman movie. So, like, you know that what you're seeing is related to that in some way. Whereas Tenet, you don't know what this is. So it was a very jarring opening because it's like, I have to figure out what's going on, right? So in the mood I was in going in, I'm like, okay, Nolan, here we go. You know, like, you're doing this to me already, which I'm openly admitting is bad, and I'm going to explain why just for this movie. Like, Interstellar, I would go into with the same negative attitude, and I'd probably feel justified. But in the case of this movie, you don't need to, and it'll basically ruin the first half hour almost, if you're expecting a regular thing. And I'm going to explain why right now. Because it then goes into a bunch of jargon and bullshit and just people explaining. Like, this is how good Christopher Nolan is as a screenwriter. People talk and explain what's going on, and then a big thing happens, and then people explain either what just happened or what'll happen next or both, and then another thing happens. So it's just people talk, action, people talk, action, people talk, action. And I'm talking like 30 minutes on either side. There will just be 15 straight minutes of dialogue, and you won't really even need to pay attention or understand any of the things they're saying. And then just a giant set piece will happen, and you won't really understand why. So basically what gets revealed is John David Washington is CIA, I believe, some covert ops espionage guy, because they don't really tell you what year it is, like what the timeline, quote unquote, is like what other technology thing. So this movie is completely it's completely presented as just an espionage movie, right? So this is what was misleading. I was like, oh, here's the big sci-fi thing, right? Inception. They're like, oh, we're this crew, blah, 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 blah. No. So this guy's a CIA agent, and it's presented like all other espionage movies, which makes sense, which I don't like typically. But you dive in and you don't know the characters, but they exist because that's how it works. You just have to jump into these worlds, get in, get info, and get out. And so that's kind of why it does that, and it justifies its own looseness with that. Kind of. But that's the whole thing of this movie that I didn't understand. This is just a James Bond movie where the plot device is sci-fi based. That's all that this is. It's not like oh, look at the meaning, deepness that it isn't there. There's no like shallow Nolan, look at my skills that aren't there thing. It's just, oh, I get it. I'm Michael Bay. I'm going to make a sick Michael Bay thing with my spin on it. Like, he finally just sprinkled in Nolan instead of going full Nolan. Because then eventually Robert Pattinson comes along, and that's great, and there's just more talking. Talk. And all the little talky scenes, they're all bullshit, and they don't matter because the plot doesn't make any sense. If you think about it for 1 second, it makes no sense. So basically what they reveal to John David Washington is that there are bullets and guns and weapons that can go backward, and like they shoot bullets that are going backward in time, and things from the future are sending things back, and you have to save the world from the future things. But then there's also a guy who is doing it. So you have to stop the future people and this one Russian guy. And you find out that the Russian guy... So like the Russian guy wants to end the world because he has cancer, which is so stupid and lame. And... but also kind of Bond-like, which is why I respected it. It was like, you know what I mean? It's like lazy for Nolan to do. But I feel like it's fitting in with what the movie's trying to accomplish. Anyway, I know that this explanation doesn't really make sense, but it's because the movie doesn't make any sense. So I'm trying to get there. I promise. So yeah, like the world will end if this guy dies or if he succeeds, which he'll then die and then it'll happen anyway. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense because, like, if the people are from the future, couldn't they just do it? You know what I mean? They could just, like, do it again. Or I guess they couldn't. That's what time travel just gets complicated the more you, like, look into it, you know, because you can, like, nitpick little holes. So I don't really want to do that either. But John David Washington is just the fucking man. He used to be a running back. He's a fucking athlete who looks and sounds like Denzel Washington. So it's just like the best of the best combination. Like watching him just run on screen is like, holy fuck, like nobody looks that good doing that. Because he actually knows how. You know, so it goes a long way. Like this is the perfect movie for him. And that's really why I like this so much. Like it is a great vehicle for John David Washington and even Robert Pattinson, for both of them to just be fucking awesome. And that's all I care about. All the scenes where there's just two people talking, they're horrific. They're so bad. The things people are saying don't make any sense. And just like in James Bond, they're like, okay, we have to get a briefcase, right? But they're set up to do that, which in Nolan fashion, and in the point of these movies is just to watch big action scenes. Like I can say that concept out loud, but then like while watching the movie, like I want it to be a movie, you know, I want it to make sense and like be a thing. And that's something that I can never get over. Like that's why I don't like Skyfall's the good one, isn't it? Spectre, Casino Royale, because it's like their plots are paper thin. You can break them in a second, and they're too serious. Like, if you watch the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies, like, yeah, they're corny and lame, but, like, that's what's fun. It's like, yeah, he has all these dumb gadgets. Like, these are silly movies. They don't have the tone of, like, this is Nomadland. Like, look at this gritty portrayal. You know what I mean? It's just like, all of this is nonsense. This guy has super weapons and just fucks broads. Like, crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Let's just let this be fun. Let this be what it should be. But they're like, okay, we have to get this briefcase. We need to blow a plane up off the runway to cause a distraction so we can do this and then go in here and then do this and then blah, blah, blah. And it's just like so complicated that it's like, why is that your plan? But the point isn't like, what a good plan. It's like, oh, watch this. And it's just hard for me to come to terms with that. But I don't know. My point is just I'm glad that Christopher Nolan didn't go Nolan. Because I would love for there to be a sequel to this movie. I want John David Washington to do this again. I want him to be an action guy. Anyway, the point is just like, they then have to go, they then find a way to time travel themselves. And like, there's really sick thing where they're existing forward and backward at the same time, because when you go back in time, you're actually just moving backwards, but the world is still moving forward. So like, I don't know. Like, I can't explain it to you, but there's a scene where like they're driving. There's an incredible heist where they surround this car with a bunch of semis and trucks, and then they like box it in and smash it, but they're all still rolling down the highway perfectly in the lane. And like the execution of it is like so unbelievable that you almost like, I almost just took it for granted as like, yeah, pretty routine. Look at Nolan. Just more of this, huh? But it's like, and I couldn't even have that shitty attitude anymore. Because it's like, holy fuck, like that was insane. Like captured so perfectly too. Like I probably wouldn't change a thing. Honestly, the editing in this movie pretty fucking killer. Now the running time maybe does hanker that argument. Just too many scenes of just the back and forth dialogue. It's like, why do you need to explain it all this much? Especially because the thing that I didn't mention that was key, that helped me realize that this movie is silly pretty early on, when JDW's character is, his character's name is the protagonist also, which a little too winky because he says it like multiple times. Like once would have been funny, but he said it a couple times and I didn't like that. It's like, okay, could have tried a little harder. Anyway, but I do like the looseness at the same time. It's complicated. But very early on, when he's being shown the reverse bullet thing by this like science lady, he's like, wait, what? And she's like, don't really think about it. She's like, don't worry about it. Like, just, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about how it works. Which was awesome, because it was a wink right to the audience. Like, yo, we know that this shit's pretty dumb and overly complicated. It's almost like Nolan felt like he had to explain it just in case. And it's like, oh, well, it's all in there. But it's like, I don't need it to all be in there if you're telling me it's not important. Like, you're admitting, finally, that all this shit doesn't matter. And you just want to make these big action parts. Really, like, they're well crafted. Those are well written. He can't write dialogue for shit, but the guy could write a fucking heist like a motherfucker. You know, and it's like they're totally unnecessary. They never make sense, but they're so unbelievable to watch that it's almost hard to believe that people could execute something like that. Right? Because like, how many takes could you have when you're like just wrecking trucks and shit? So it's like, you got to nail these things. It's really impressive. The resolution made no sense. Like, most of this makes no sense. You can kind of keep up. You get the gist of all of it. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell what the puzzle would look like when it was done, but you can't put it together by yourself. If that makes sense. Like, the puzzle's too overwhelming to just piece it together as you're watching. But you can get like the border set up, which is all that you really need. It's just like, I'm right there with it. But it gets pretty dense, as he tends to do. And Yeah, I don't know. I was just really surprised, is all I'm saying. Pleasantly. And I thought that it was really good. Early on, I was like, this is terrible. I almost gave up. I almost shut it off. I'm not going to lie, because I had that this is going to piss me off mentality, and completely didn't. And I would say that that's the biggest mistake that they made in marketing this movie. They did the classic thing to make it look like just another Christopher Nolan movie. Like, oh, look at this super serious, intense, duh, you know, like it doesn't have that. By the way, I don't even think Hans Zimmer did the score. Somebody good did the score. The score was good. So you don't got to worry about that. But like, it just seemed like it was going to be one of those. And I think that was super misleading. The movie is fun and loose and still completely incoherent and dumb, but in the best way possible. It's like the best. It would be the best Daniel Craig era James. It would be the best James Bond movie ever. I don't like James Bond movies. I can say it. I gotta pretend, but it would be the best Craig one too. You know, it was sick. Would I watch it again? Maybe. I would probably just skip, to be honest. If I watched this movie again, I would skip through all the dialogue scenes. They're so pointless. There's the introduction of a female character at one point who's like the Russian guy's wife who wants to end the world and all this shit. And it's like, here we go. It's going to happen. But no. They don't really do that. She doesn't. She's able to fend for herself. She's her own character. You know, not the best. But also, a big plot hole is that she's like being blackmailed into this marriage. But she doesn't know about the world-ending stuff, I think. But she knows that he has cancer, which is terminal, like confirmed. That's the whole point. But she wants help from the Tenet guys to get out of the marriage. But it's like, if you know he's going to die and you don't know that that will trigger the end of existence, wouldn't you just wait it out at this point? I'm just saying. So there's stuff like that. It's just like, oh, well, you just poke the holes. You just poke all the holes, then you can breathe. But overall, you know what? I'm going to pull up the list. Let's see where I would rank this. Let's just do the ranking. Why not? Let's do it live. Okay. So first movie following, didn't finish it. Pretty boring, super indie, black and white, also truly British. I think that was the hardest thing for me to get over. Just so British. That pretty intolerable. Just about a guy who just randomly, just on impulse, starts stalking people, and it escalates and escalates, and then I don't know how it ends. Somebody dies, I'm sure, but you know, whatever. Memento, so vastly overrated. Like, I didn't know, quote unquote, what the twist was, but it was pretty clear with like 45 minutes to an hour left. Maybe 30 minutes, whatever, but you get the gist. And everything that happened in between was kind of just whatever. And it's like, oh, I don't understand what the big deal of this was. Now, maybe it was having seen similar type things first. That's what George tried to claim. But that's because he loves everything ever made by anybody except for his friends' opinions. Ironically. Shout out to George. Didn't like it. Insomnia, I still haven't seen, but I want to, simply because the combo of Pacino and Robin Williams is pretty interesting. So, you know, maybe I'll do that, but like, honestly, this is like his lowest rated movie, I think. No, that's probably Dark Knight Rises, right? I don't know. God, this guy really gets critical acclaim. That's what bothers me. It's like, these movies aren't that good. Especially retroactively. See, that's how he gets everybody. Ever since Batman Begins. It's just... No, it's really ever since The Dark Knight. But these big theater experiences, they just crush people. He's probably getting people to screen in these mega IMAX things, and you can't you can't look away. See, that's the problem. Like, you're sitting watching this in your room, you got your phone next to you. It goes off, you look down for a second. I understand you should give a movie your full attention, and I'm with all that. First of all, if your movie was that good, I wouldn't get distracted. But also, like, it it totally takes you out of it. And the second you're taken out of it, and again, you can think about it, because I don't have it cranked to a volume to where I can't think of anything else, you know? It's at a volume to where it's reasonable in my home, right? So it's all these little factors that come into play that, like, totally change the experience. And, like, it's not that a guy should be trying to make a movie for home, you know? I mean, unless you're literally working for Netflix. But if you know it's going to have a theatrical release, I don't know. You shouldn't lean so much into that, because it's like, yeah, you're the rich guy. You probably do have a home theater, and you probably watch movies on a projector, and you watch prints of them, and you have a Dolby Atmos, you know, IMAX quality, whatever, and all this shit. Most people don't, bro. You know what I mean? A lot of people are going to watch this shit on their phone, which I think is horrific. You know, I do not agree with that, but, you know, you have to respect your audience in that they're going to do what they want with your shit. Like, you don't get to dictate every aspect of all of it. You know what I mean? Like, you want to curate some experience, then do like a one-off museum thing that people have to, you know what I mean? It's just like, but if you're trying to release a movie, like, that's mainstream art. Like, you can't tell people how to listen to your album. Right? Like, Flaming Lips tried to do that. We have to, like, play 4 CDs at the same time, which is an incredible concept, but it's just not practical, right? So it's not going to do well. So you tell me, basically, if I don't see this movie in theaters, then it's going to suck, and then you're telling me you didn't make a good movie. Right? It's just weird that, like, I get it, Transformers movies suck, but, like, those make $1 billion. So it's like, if no one would just be like, yeah, it's just Transformers. $1 billion. What a long-winded way to do that. Anyway, Batman Begins, pretty good. The Prestige, love it. Dark Knight, I've gone lukewarm over time. Same with Inception. Rises, too, that has gotten so bad over time. I think that movie kind of just sucks now. Because it's the same, it's like, you can't rewatch these movies. It totally destroys the whole thing. They do not age well. Dunkirk, hated it. I mean, Tenet, I don't know. I really like The Prestige. The top 3 in some order is The Prestige, The Dark Knight, and Tenet. So that's just what I'm getting at. That was my point of trying to check this. Tenet, one of his best movies. So I highly recommend it. It's on HBO Max, free to watch now. The British Michael Bay. Let's start calling it like we see it, please. And that was my confusing, disjointed, horrific explanation of a confusing and disjointed movie. So, I really don't think anything could have been more fitting. Give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. John David Washington, please be in more shit. Like, honestly, like, Black Klansman got all that praise, mostly for being timely, I think. Because I watched it, I'm like, this movie's not that great. But boy, I just love watching John David Washington. I just want him on screen more and more. Like, whenever there's a scene without John David Washington, it's like, where is John David Washington? Bring him out. I wish he had gotten into acting sooner. Much sooner. But that's fine. He's going to be in shape for many years to come. You're always going to be able to run on screen. Tom Cruise still looks like he's in shape. Well, he is, but just saying, that guy's like 60-something. Look at him sprint. So, John David Washington. Let's cast him across the board. I hope that there's a sequel to Tenet, honestly. Just want to see him do it again. Pattinson, too. What a tear he's been on. Great in there. Honestly, I'd kind of like it if there was a movie that tied Tenet with Inception in some trilogy, and he basically did like the M. Night Shyamalan Glass thing. But good, maybe. I'm sure you could figure it out. Both of the movies don't make any fucking sense anyway, so just link the agencies somehow. I don't know. Also, I think Tenet technically reveals that the main character is on a time loop, which would like make the movie not sequelable, but it also seemed like that didn't have to necessarily be true, so I don't really know. I don't know what happened at the end, to be honest. I couldn't really tell what they were explaining. It seemed like something bad was being explained, like that this guy's destiny was to keep doing this over and over again, but then it seemed like he moved on and there was going to be another one. So I don't really know. But I would like it. If you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, keep them wild and loose. Like, keep treating it as this Bond-esque thing. Get more loose, you know. Now that we have all the explanations out of the way, like, you know, we'll dive in. We'll do 2 hours flat. We don't need it to be so fucking long and all this shit. But speaking of Tom Cruise, I was like, okay. We got Tenet out of the way. Now let's go back in time. Tenet style. 20 years. Still haven't seen Vanilla Sky. It's like, okay. I remember when this came out, because I was like 7 or whatever. And I just remember family members at gatherings. Like, it came up. They're like, yeah, I rented it. Speaking of which, watched the last Blockbuster documentary. Pretty disappointing, but still cool to see it. I wish there was still Blockbuster. Honestly, part of the downfall of society, I think, is the lack of Blockbuster, because what a magical experience that was. Anyway. This, it's just like, holy shit, is Vanilla Sky. I had to rewind it like 5 times. That's what I heard. Multiple people. Oh, I have no idea what it's about. It's like, how fucking complicated could this movie be? And let me tell you, not at all. Not at all. What a giant turd. Didn't even get through it. Turned it off, gave it another chance. Kept going, turned it off again. Horrifically bad. Cameron Crowe. Stick to your rom-com loser bullshit, buddy. Because Jesus. Like, who do you think you're, David Lynch? I don't know what the goal was. Like, they thought they were making this, like, brilliant, heady masterpiece thing. And just what a crock of shit. Tom Cruise plays a billionaire, by all accounts, who looks like Tom Cruise. So, best life of all time. His biggest issue is that Cameron Diaz, in her prime, is obsessed with him. That's his biggest problem in life. Is that one of the hottest women on earth just wants to be around him all the time. Now, I understand that, like, if you technically want to analyze that, if there's someone you don't want to be with and they're bothering you, that's not cool. But, like, shut the fuck up. You know? Because he's also fucking her all the time. So it's like, you know, you're just an asshole, honestly. Which gets revealed. I'll get to that. And then, yeah, they're like, oh, is this a dream? Is this not a dream? Right away, right at the beginning. But all these horrible music cues. Basically, this movie looks like it was made in 1992. From the sound, the look, all of it. It's from 2001 because Cameron Crowe, Jesus. And I don't know, they cue up everything in its right place right at the beginning, and it's just like, it doesn't fit. I don't know. I've heard that song only a million times, so maybe that's why, but it's like totally misused to score it, and it's really off-putting right at the beginning. They just like put in a song that was big at the time, so never a good thing. You know? And then his best friend is Jason Lee. Jason Lee shows up to a party at his he lives in a penthouse along Park Avenue. Drives a Ferrari. Not Jason Lee, Tom Cruise, sorry. Jason Lee shows up to Tom Cruise's house with Penelope Cruz, who is a terrible actress, at least in this movie. And he shows up at the party with this chick, and he's like, here, fuck this girl I brought. Go ahead, do it. I know you're going to do it. You're Tom Cruise. And it's like, what? And he's like, all right, bro. Yeah, I'm going to try. And he just like starts flirting with her in front of Jason Lee's face. And it's like, you guys are friends? Like, this is just a weird thing. And then it literally gets to the point where Jason Lee's like, all right, I'm leaving. It's just like, why? What? Yeah, well, like, none of this makes sense. And he's like, you know what, man? You always just take my girl. You're such a stud. I don't know how you do it. And it's like, all of this is horrible. And there's literally a point where Penelope Cruz's character is like, you're leaving? Like, I'm going to come with you, dude. We came here together. And he's like, no, stay. I get it. And she's like, what? I want to leave, too. I don't want to be here. And he's like, no, stay. Fuck him. I know you're going to. And she's like, I don't want to fuck this guy. And he's like, fuck this guy. And she's like, dude, you know? And then she does. She's like, okay, instead, how about you come to my apartment somehow? And then they just like fall in love in 20 minutes. And, you know, like none of it makes any sense. And this isn't like a Tenet style thing where it's like trying to be confusing or trying to do anything yet. This is still like the setup. It's just really terrible. And what happens after that? Oh, yeah. So Cameron Diaz is waiting for this guy outside this chick's house. And he just gets in the car. He has his own car. But he gets in her car just because she's like, I'm sad or whatever. So that's dumb. But he's like, oh, I can get some puss. Because this chick didn't want to fuck. So it's just like, it's all stupid. And then she drives them off a bridge because she's like, bro, like, you're just pounding me and treating me like shit. She's like, I actually like you, bro. And he's like, oh, I don't fucking like you. And it's like, oh, God. And no, he says, like, I love you. And she's like, ah. You know, they make her out to be this, like, crazy chick. And then she drives him off a bridge, right? Now, this is where, like, the plot of the movie actually starts. And it just gets worse. So basically all that happens is he breaks his jaw. She dies, by the way. He doesn't care at all. Which I guess you wouldn't if somebody drives you off a bridge. I'd probably be a little resentful. That's fair. But yeah, he just breaks his jaw. He's fine. And his, you know, because he broke his jaw, his face doesn't look great. The description of this movie is like he gets reconstructive surgery and is like horribly disfigured. He just like Tom Cruise just like does an underbite and then there's like a couple scars on his face. It's like he's not like disfigured. He's just like less Tom Cruise. He still has the same teeth and beautiful bone structure above his jaw. You know what I mean? This is like the most beautiful disfigured man in history. And he's also still like running this publishing company and living in a penthouse on Park Avenue. Like he still has the best life. But he's just like in so much agony over how terrible his face is. Like that's all that this movie is. Rich playboy is ugly now. Isn't that the worst thing? And he just like can't handle it. And that's pretty much it. And then Penelope Cruz doesn't want to fuck him after. But not because he's ugly, because he can't handle being ugly. Which would be reasonable at the beginning. You know? But wouldn't a guy like this, he would just stay inside until he could muster up the courage, and he would just be calling hookers over. Or he wouldn't even have to. There'd be a million Cameron Diaz's. Maybe not of her stature. But you know what I mean? Like, this guy could get laid to build his confidence back up. That's all that would have to happen. You know? It's just so dumb. And then anyway, he links up with Penelope Cruz again. They fall back in love, but then he murders her because he thinks he's Cameron Diaz. And the whole movie, he's in jail, and it's like he's wearing this terrible mask, which I think is supposed to be artistic and make him seem like as far as the movie goes, it's supposed to be like, wow, look at this guy. It's like Phantom of the Opera style or almost like horror-esque. But he just looks fucking stupid. He's wearing like a Jabberwocky's mask, which I think is where they must have got it from this movie. Which, you know, it's just all terrible. And Kurt Russell is like, you murdered her. Why'd you murder her? And he's like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Anyway, the twist that they reveal is that he's been in a lucid dream state. Or has he? Because he's trying to preserve his body until the tech is there to fix his face. Or is it? Right? It's like trying to be Total Recall. But regardless, it's like, who cares? Like, none of the things that happened were interesting anyway. I'm supposed to feel bad for this guy or this character? Like, no. This guy's a total asshole who deserved all this. And none of it is like trippy or like heady like it tries to be. It's all pretty straightforward. It's like, oh, what happened here? What happened here? It's like, who cares? It's either a dream or it's not. But it's not like a thing where it's like in your head, like, oh, wait, maybe this time, this, you know, it's not like crafting this timeline that's impossible to decipher where you're picking apart every little thing that happened, trying to figure out the true meaning. Like, it's not deep at all. It's just the most surface level twist thing ever. It's a movie about a rich guy who gets his face hurt. Or it's like, maybe he died. Or maybe the whole movie was a dream. But regardless, it's just like, who cares if this was a dream or not? Why would you cryogenically freeze yourself until they can fix your face? Like, your face is fine. You're Tom Cruise. And you're a billionaire guy. You know? Just start working more. You know? It's just crazy. That's one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I was reading reviews, right? And it's like the overall, like, tomato score, Metacritic score, pretty low, below 50, right? But then, like, Roger Ebert, Richard Roper, or was it still Siskel? I don't remember. But regardless, like, glowing reviews. Loved it. And I get that, like, at the time, maybe this was more indicative of the type of things that were coming out, I guess. There were a lot more movies about just like, oh, I'm blah, blah, blah in Manhattan. That is a very common thing, but what a train wreck. It just doesn't make any sense to me. How they could have been like, wow, bravo. And it's like coming off of Almost Famous, which is pretty good. I think that that's overrated, but still, I'm not going to act like that movie sucks. It's just like he had no ability to shift towards this type of film. It's like technically sci-fi. It like wants to be sci-fi. But I mean, it has the production value of like an Adam Sandler movie. Because it's just a Cameron Crowe movie. You know what I mean? Like, he's not... It's trying to be this like auteur, heady, brilliant thing. And it's just a big sack of shit. So there's my 20-year double movie confusion day. And they're both so long. But boy, it was Tenet so much better. I gotta say. And it's funny because I'd heard, and I don't even know if this was a thing at this time. It probably had to have been by then. But like, Tom Cruise has a clause that like he has to be running in all of his movies. And there is a scene very early on in Vanilla Sky that just like forces him to run for no reason. It's like, oh God, this guy's hilarious. He does look good doing it. I'll give him that. I mean, no JDW, but he's not fucking Steven Seagal trying to run around. Oh! You hear that throat grit? Doing it for you people playing injured with the night sweats, the meat sweats. It's Confusing Movie Tuesday. That's all I got for you. Thanks for tuning in. Don't know what time I'll release next week. Again, experimenting with them. Maybe the same time as this week. Maybe I'll do that for a few weeks. I don't really know, but it'll be out next Tuesday, as always. Rate, review, subscribe, all of that. Check out the merch. Everything linked below if you need it. Check it out. Tell some people. Put us on. And we'll talk to you next week. But first, please remember, I are fat. You are fat. We are fat. Calculator.